Dear viewer, welcome. This is Malik with a brand new episode titled The Mongols. In The Complete History by Ibn al-Athir, he says in describing the events of 1220-1221 AD, very terrifying words. For several years I refrained from mentioning them, out of horror and reluctance to recount them. For who could easily write an obituary for Islam and Muslims? I wish my mother had never given birth to me. I wish I had died before this, and had been long forgotten. What happened and what was the disaster that occurred at that time? He explains the origins of the Mongols' departure from their homeland up to their arrival in Baghdad, describing their advance as a disaster the likes of which the world had never seen. He says that the Mongols spared no one, not even unborn children in their mothers' wombs. As for the event described by Ibn al-Athir, which took place in the early days of the year 1219-1220 AD, it was the massacre of the city of Samarkand. After the Mongol army, led by Genghis Khan, defeated the city's forces, they entered it, slaughtered its men, captured its women, enslaved the children, and forcibly incorporated them into the Mongol army, looted its wealth, and then burned the city to the ground. And that was not all. 1 month earlier, the city of Bukhara had surrendered to the Mongols and opened its gates willingly, without resistance. But this was not enough to spare its people from the Mongols' swords. The inhabitants were killed, and the city was completely destroyed. Genghis Khan justified his actions in a speech he delivered before the people of Bukhara, saying, "I am the punishment of God upon the earth. If you were not sinners, God would not have allowed me to punish you." Neither surrender nor resistance was of any use against the Mongols. The pain and anguish Ibn al-Athir felt while writing these words did not stem so much from past events as from fear of what was to come. Ibn al-Athir died in Mosul in 1233 AD, and he was aware that it was only a matter of time before the Mongols would sweep through Baghdad, a fate that actually occurred in 1258 AD, when the Mongols, led by Hulagu, Genghis Khan's grandson, entered Baghdad and completely destroyed the city. It can be said that in the 13th century, people treated the Mongols as if they were a natural force like an inevitable tsunami or earthquake. It was necessary to realize that they were coming and that they could not be confronted or stopped, even if one surrendered. Death was unavoidable. Let us, dear viewer, travel to the other side of the world, to England specifically during the years 1387 to 1400, about 170 years after Genghis Khan's conquest of Samarkand. At that time, England was living through the era of the Black Death, the plague. You may wonder, dear viewer, what connection England and the plague have with the Mongols. Dear viewer, the plague spread from Asia to Europe because of the Mongols. The Mongols were throwing plague-infected corpses into the city of Kaffa in Ukraine, and from Kaffa the plague spread to the rest of Europe. The Mongols were the first to use biological warfare. The English did not know this because they were isolated, and because half of London's population had died from the plague at that time. There was an English poet and author named Geoffrey Chaucer who wrote a collection of stories called the Canterbury Tales, including a story in which he describes the Mongol king Genghis Khan as Cambuscan. Geoffrey describes Genghis Khan saying, "There was no one in his time with a reputation as great as his, nor any ruler in any region who surpassed him in anything, and he lacked nothing of the qualities of a king. He was courageous, wise, and wealthy." You may wonder, how can a criminal and murderer who destroyed entire cities and committed the most horrific massacres be described in this way? The truth is that Geoffrey was describing the idealized image that Europeans had of Genghis Khan at that time. You might say, my friend, that in the information age people now know the true nature of Genghis Khan, and that the positive view from the Middle Ages has changed, and that they now consider Genghis a criminal and a murderer. No, my friend. This is because, according to Batuhan Aksu, a researcher in the Department of History at the University of Manchester, Genghis Khan is considered a controversial figure. Some reputable sources and institutions focus on the positive aspects of his life, such as the book Genghis Khan and the Making of the Modern World, published in 2004 by Jack Weatherford. This supports the idea of Genghis Khan's positive impact on our modern world. But what are these positive aspects, aside from reducing the world's population? Before I answer this question, and before we understand the perspective of these historians, Let's start from the right point and go back to the beginning of the story. According to the most widely accepted accounts, our story begins in 1162 AD on the slopes of Mount Burkan Khaldun, the place believed to be where Genghis Khan was born and where he was later buried. Because of its great sacredness to the Mongol people, UNESCO has listed it as a World Heritage Site. Genghis Khan was born under the name Temujin. When he was 9 years old, his father was poisoned and killed. His father was not an ordinary man. He was the leader of a confederation of Mongol tribes known as the Kamag Mongols. Temujin's family endured years of instability until he grew older. Temujin, who would later become known as Genghis Khan. He then turned to his father's old friend Togrul, the ruler of the Karayat tribe. This was not a Mongol tribe, but an ethnic group living on the Mongolian steppes. Temujin also sought the help of his friend Jamuka, and together they managed to defeat the Merkit, another ethnic group living in Mongolia. The summary of this long journey is that Temujin became the leader of the Borjigin tribe, while Jamuka also became the leader of his own tribe, the Jadaran. But what happened after that? I don't know. The years between 1186 and 1196 remain largely unknown in Temujin's life, as no one knows exactly what happened during that period. If we were to give a title to Temujin's life between 1196 and 1206, it would be No Friends on This Path. During this period, Jamuka turned against Temujin and began fighting him, and Togrul also turned on him and waged war. These were complex years, filled with continuous battles and brutal conflicts. And in the end, these wars ended with the unification of the Mongolian steppes under the leadership of Temujin, at which point he took the title of Genghis Khan.